Great. Well, good morning. It's still morning for 15 more minutes, so I'll say good morning. I'm Megan Vincent, and I am your council vice president. And I have volunteered on the council to work with our council, or our church staff, and with all of you to try to have a conversation about what it means for us as Christ the King to be in community with our new Gallatin High School. So we've had a few conversations about it at the church council, and then Lindeen and I have had a few conversations, and this is still kind of the informational gathering phase. And the purpose of today is to really hear from you, members of our congregation, if you feel as though you would like us to serve the school, and if so, what would that look like? So before we get started, I'd like to have us start with a prayer this morning. Please bow your head. Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to have a conversation amongst our congregation members, to look at the opportunity you've put in front of us with the location of our church to the newest high school in Gallatin County. Please be with us today as we talk about this. Please continue to watch over us as we work through these ideas the next few months, and then putting our words into action, because we know that our actions speak louder than words, and we want to be a good neighbor. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. So, just a little bit about myself and why I volunteered to do this is I work in the education field. I work for the Montana Office of Public Instruction in Helena, and OPI is the state public agency that oversees our public school system K-12. And I currently serve as the Family and Consumer Sciences Education Specialist for the state. So I work with all of our middle schools and high schools around the state of Montana that teach family and consumer sciences. That's classes like culinary arts, foods and nutrition, clothing and textiles, interior design, personal family finance, child development, early childhood education, that kind of gamut. So I have my head and hands in the schools often, and of course education is my love, so that's why I felt it was important to take advantage of this opportunity to be a part of this conversation and help you think about what that means for us being nearby. The first thing I want to cover with you guys this morning is some basics. So I want to know why you're sitting here listening to me and you're about to get involved in activities. So who here is a member of CTK? Raise your hand. Oh, good. Okay. Great. How many of you are parents of high school students at this current time? Okay. How many of you are parents of students that might be going to Gallatin High School? Okay. How many of you might have family members involved in a high school setting at this point in their life? Wonderful. How many of you live nearby in this area? Okay. And how many of you feel like you are here because you are just part of the greater surrounding community and this interests you? So did everybody raise their hand at some point? Great. Would there be any other reasons that you'd like to share that you're sitting here today to take part of this conversation?
You didn't give grandparents any credit.
Ooh, grandparents. Oh, do we have any grandparents in the audience whose you might be, there we go. You might be picking up, dropping off. Who knows what your involvement will be over there.
How about parents who look like grandparents?
Fair enough. Yes, I have a child that will be going there as well. That's great. Wonderful. Let's cover a few questions this morning. And before we get into some of our big picture thinking, and I would just like to remind you all that today while we're thinking kind of pie in the sky big picture today. I don't want you to be thinking, oh no, that's too hard, or we don't have the manpower of that, or that's going to cost too much money. Let's put those negative thoughts aside and let's think, what can we really, if money and time and people were no object, what would we imagine for ourselves to be neighbors with Gallatin High School? You can bring in the negativity later down the road, but today let's stay big picture thinking and excited and think pie in the sky. So first I want to cover what do we know. So what do we know already about Gallatin High School? Anybody want to share something they already know about it? Yes?
It's big. I hope they'll be good neighbors.
It's big and you hope they'll be good neighbors. It is. The capacity there is built for 1,500 students. I think they anticipate, I don't know what their initial enrollment anticipation is. Pardon?
About 900.
About 900, and they can go up to 1,500. Okay, what else do we already know about Gallatin High School?
Will there be a lot of increased traffic around the church and the roads around here?
There is going to be a lot of increased traffic around this area, that is true.
There already is. I live on Cottonwood.
There already is, yes. The traffic patterns will change greatly. Okay, what else do we know about Gallatin High School? They're opening in the fall of 2020, so a year from this fall.
Is it true the guidelines or the parameters are yet defined?
The boundaries
Yeah.
are already defined. They can be found on the Bozeman School District website, and it's kind of like a zigzag pattern. It starts somewhere over, like by a bridge or golf course. Somewhere over there is where it starts to cut through, and the northwest segment of that will be at Gallatin, and the southeast segment will be at Bozeman High School. They worked really hard in those committees to make sure that they were splitting as equally as possible so that it's not a haves and a have-nots type of situation. But where you go to elementary school or middle school does not dictate where you go to high school. It's truly by that boundary.
I'm wondering how the students are going to survive without a Little Caesars and a Wendy's.
Yes, we know that there is no food options around the new high school
Christ the King.
other than Christ the King. And we know that current high school students really like to go out to eat because they have an open campus policy. So that might be different in other places, but in Bozeman we have an open campus policy so they can go wherever they want. It will be the same here, I've been told. So that is something for consideration. We also know the principal of the new high school, Erica Schnee. She is born and raised Bozeman educator and now has been a vice principal at the high school. Her and I had a chance to meet a week ago for 30 minutes. She was excited to have this conversation. She's open to these conversations. So we have an open and thoughtful administrator who is willing to communicate and come visit us at any time if we would like to bring her in to talk at an adult forum or talk to our congregation about what it means to be a neighbor of the new high school. And we also know that they will start with freshmen, sophomore, and juniors next fall. They will not have a senior class. All seniors will stay at Bozeman High School to finish out, so they're starting with 3 grades. We also know the traffic plans quote. If she were to come with her big plat map, you could see, bless you, where the entrances are, and there will be a fair amount of traffic on this road. We also know that there will be a parent advisory council, but for the first year it's going to be kind of joint because they're trying to do as many things joint the first year between the 2 high schools, like even prom, while they work through all of those changes and then adjustments. Okay. What do we need to know? What do you think we need to know about Gallatin High School that we maybe don't already know?
What's the parking situation, or are we going to end up like an overflow parking like every other church around the current high school?
Okay, so we might need to know the parking situation. There's quite a bit of parking on their plans, but it's a great question. Okay, what else do we need to know? It's okay if there's not a...
I think you did raise the question. Are there any plans for eating sites or
Sure.
eating venues? I mean, well, the city is growing so rapidly out this direction.
Correct. So I can answer partially.
Yeah.
One, they know that that is a major consideration with the design of the new high school. So they have designed their food service to be very inviting to the school population. So hopefully a lot of students will eat at the school. But there's also a zoned area up here on Baxter and Cottonwood maybe, or Oak, somewhere north of here. There's a rezoning for commercial. So there is a chance within a year or two eating establishments will open in this area.
I think it would also be nice to know what other faith communities in this area are planning to do. For instance, is there a group that's going to do like the Second Rock 2.0? Are there plans?
Okay, that's a great question.
I think that's a carryover to talk with the owners of the property next door that hasn't developed, because that's a, Jody, you have to help me remember the church.
Trinity Presbyterian.
DCA.
Yeah.
They actually, I know one of the couple of the members that are on their council, and they're actually planning on building a youth building before they actually build the regular church.
Okay. Okay, any other questions you would like to know or we would need to know? Where's that location?
What are the hours, and is it
free time at the beginning or the end?
Like, what's their daily schedule?
Schedule.
Sure. So their bell schedule is the same as the current Bozeman High School schedule. They can tell me before we leave, but I think you start at 8:25 and you end at 3:35.
Yeah, but zero period starts at 7:30.
Yep. So Bozeman High School runs on a 7-period day plus a 0 period. So the 0 period is option. That's the 7:35 one. And then the main school day starts at 8:25. They have 4 periods. They all have the same lunch hour. It's about 55 minutes. So the entire campus lets out for lunch at the same time. There's not a back and forth option. And then they have the afternoon classes and they're done at 3:35. That schedule will remain the same at the new one. I asked Erica about that as well for at least the first year because they will have some teachers going back and forth, traveling between buildings, maybe morning and afternoon or however that gets split. So that will be the same. And then once school is done, it's pretty much they vacate. There's not kind of that after-school programming at the high school. You know, they might have sports practices or activities or clubs, but there's not like an after-school program you would find in maybe middle school or elementary. Which is part of the reason the Rock started, which the Rock is right next door to current Bozeman High School on 11th, and that was started by a church in town.
It was First Baptist Church.
First Baptist
a few years
Church
ago.
to
They
serve as a place
incorporated-
for people or students to go as a safe place after school or before school or lunch. And they sell food there. It has morphed into its own nonprofit. My daughter Carrie frequents that place, so she explained to me that lunchtime is super busy because people are there buying food, but it's not a place they stay because it's small. They buy food and leave. So you'll see a line of people constantly buying food. You'll see that before school. You will see it after school as well. And she also shared with me this morning that if you can't pay, they'll still give you the food. So some kids, if they're out of money that day, they'll still feed them. Maybe the next time they come in and they have extra, they'll kind of repay, quote, or they don't have to. So there is some of that happening there as well, which is great to know, because I did not know that piece of the Rock.
Do they service all children?
All
High school kids?
high school kids, yeah. But typically the people that go there are those that do not drive or do not have a vehicle, because I think a lot of the students that can drive leave at lunch.
So you can jump in your car and leave during lunch?
Open campus, open everything. Mhm.
Can I ask a question about the population?
Sure.
The expected population
Of,
of the high school? And Lindeen may know this for a fact, but does anybody know what the potential demographies of this school will be? I mean, will there be homeless kids?
yes.
Okay. So there's been a study of,
I think it would be impossible to, we know there's, what is it, between 75 and 100 homeless students currently at Bozeman High School. So if you just think there has to be some of those in that boundary split with this. So that's a great question in terms of the homeless liaison. Every school district is required to have a homeless liaison. A homeless student can be defined in a multitude of ways. It doesn't actually, or it's not just students whose families are homeless, but some of them are emancipated or have left their home. Some of them are couch surfing with friends. There's a lot of different ways in which a student can be deemed homeless, but there is federal support specifically for homeless students, and each school district has a liaison, and Anna Edwards is the liaison in the Bozeman School District, but she serves the entire school district of homeless students and families. So her office, she has a space at Bozeman High, but she also goes to the middle schools and elementary schools as needed, and she will also be responsible for working at Gallatin High School. So I think that is a huge responsibility for one person, and I don't know what the school enrollment is in the entire school district, but that's large. So yes, more than likely, there will be. We could certainly ask them more information about what that looks like. We know that the HRDC runs a home for homeless students near the current high school, and I'm not sure how many sleep there. Is it 10-ish, 10 to 15?
It's not quite that big.
It's not, it might even be smaller, but they did end up purchasing a home a few years back, and some of the students that live there are no longer with their families. They work, they go to school, they pay a small rent, they are learning how to live on their own and function in society, and that is near the high school, so that is within walking distance. So that would not be something that this new high school has access to yet at this time because of its newness. We know that the current population of Bozeman High School is about 2,300 students, and after the new one opens, they're going to renovate the current one, and they're going to reduce the size. So both high schools will be at a capacity of 1,500. So even though they have 2,300 there now, they'll reduce that and that population will be smaller as
Does
well.
that mean they'll redraw those lines?
Not at this time.
If they are reducing,
They're reducing that one because so many of them will shift over here. Those,
But if kids are already in the program at Bozeman High, they're probably going to stay there to graduate.
Just the seniors.
just the seniors.
Oh, really?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, they
Maybe
will.
I wasn't listening.
Oh, that's okay. They're gonna start freshmen, sophomore, and juniors here at the new high school. So regardless of where they're at now, when that split when they, fall of 2020, everybody but the seniors will move over here.
Do you know if the alternative school is staying at the current location?
You know,
or
that's a
if
great
they
question. I
split
didn't
that?
ask about that.
That's our at-risk kids, that's gonna be some of our outreach.
So that would be really helpful to know what their plans with Bridger, what do they call it, the academy or charter school? I think they call it the Bridger Charter School. So let's definitely ask about that. I did not ask about what was happening with that situation. Okay, so we do have some questions. Okay, next I want you to think about what resources do we have here at Christ the King within what resources do we have that come to mind?
With a dead garden on it.
Well, we talked about,
I happen to sit on the
everywhere
Montana
right
Farm to School
now.
leadership team.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to start thinking about our garden space.
Oh,
we talked about maybe having food trucks come in.
Yep,
Short term to
we
provide
have.
food, so we have a nice
We have a
parking
So
lot.
we have we have a parking lot that people like to use.
We have existing square footage already.
Okay, our physical building, our existing building. Okay, what else do we have for resources? Kitchen,
Shower.
shower. People,
We
I
also-
think, and we have lovely people, and look at all of you sitting here wanting to talk about this, so I think our people are a huge resource.
We have a model of family promise that we're all used to.
Family promise model. And I would add to that the warming center model with HRDC. Okay?
We have, as a member, we have the former activities director of the school, high school system.
We do. We have Jerry Reisig as a member of our church who's retiring as the athletic director.
Activities director, right?
yeah.
Oh,
It is
okay.
activities.
Activities director.
Got a good youth program going.
Okay, we have a strong youth program.
Let's just put JP in charge of the whole thing.
He's not here, so.
That's why I said it.
He tried to be here as long as he could, but we scheduled this and he already had that meeting scheduled, so I was, sorry. But it's important that we discern this and talk about it, in addition to our staff. And that point was made to me, and I think that's really important that we talk about it as members, as well as the staff, and then, we'll start to figure out how that looks together. Any other resources?
We already have relationships built with organizations like the HRDC that, we can, if we find something of a larger scope and need, additional resources or need to coordinate with other groups, those will come in handy.
Absolutely, I would agree.
We have a history of meeting needs at Meadowlark and at the Shelf.
Absolutely. I bet you all can read that.
Finance.
Finances?
We heard there was interest in the solar power system,
Yeah.
if we get it,
Okay.
from their physics and
I'm
science.
sure in their science classes. Yep.
We also have a very welcoming theology.
Absolutely.
Which some of our neighbors probably may not have. I was careful about that.
There are, yes,
May not.
well said. That's a lot of pretty good resources.
Yeah.
Not that you can read my writing. Great. So My last question, and this is where you guys get to participate and move around, is I want you to think about what ideas you have. If you think about all those things, like what do we know? We do have some questions, what do we need to know? We've talked about a lot of our resources, but now what ideas do you have for actually serving Gallatin High School? What has come to mind? We have a few that started last week, but I want us to get back to this and think about it broadly so that everybody has a chance to put down their ideas. So what I've done around the room is there's 4 posters, and I have some markers up here you might have to share. But if you have an idea of how we can serve the high school, I want you to come up here and write it. No idea is dumb. This is brainstorming. You put your idea down, okay? Don't be afraid to. So if you have ideas of what we can actually do at Gallatin High School, the building and the surrounding campus, I want you to write that here. If you have ideas of what we can do here at Christ the King to serve Gallatin High School, so if you're thinking about our building, our acreage, our space, then you write it on the Christ the King poster in the back. If you have ideas of how we can serve, or if you've had ideas about it based on the surrounding community, so not necessarily Christ the King, or not at Bozeman High School, but if there's things we can do in the community, what did I say, community? I meant to say community. Then you would write it on the surrounding community. And if you have ideas that don't fit any of those 3 categories, then you would write it on the other sticky note and the wall. Does that make sense? Yeah, thumbs up for yes?
Yes.
Thumbs sideways for you're not sure what I'm saying? Thumbs down for you're not with me yet. Okay, I got mostly thumbs up. Okay, so this is the participation part. Come get a marker. All right, so we've got some stuff written down here. Let's go through it together as a whole, and then we'll break into some small group. Well, we're kind of running it. Kind of see how we're doing on time and how you're doing. Normally, I would take the time to have you break into small groups then and kind of break those down a little bit. And then at the end, what I want you to do is have you kind of vote, quote, or mark which of these ideas that you've heard are kind of your favorites, that we kind of get an idea of maybe which ones rise to the top. That might be the ones we look at first in terms of attacking. So let's start with this one, Gallatin High School. So physically at the high school building, whether that is the high school itself or their campus area, which their campus is huge. Multiple parking lots. They have a track. There's a water feature. There's multiple practice fields. It's a big space. And then on the north side of that is the new Bozeman Sports Park. So there's nothing on it's soccer fields and lacrosse fields on the north side. So there's a lot of green open space, which is cool. So the suggestions made here are Bible studies, mentoring and tutoring, having a presence in the school newspaper, and then a campus liaison to assist in finding students in need. And then, I don't know what they're called, but a couple of us want to write down that there's volunteers at the current school through the PAC. You have to go through a background check, but if you pass that, they have people that volunteer at Open the Doors for students in the morning and at lunch to just be another smiley, happy face in the school as students enter and to feel welcome. That was enacted at Bozeman High School because there's so many entry doors that they can't lock them all and they can't keep track of them all, so people can really go in and out of that school more so than they would like. And this campus will be different because the way they design it, there's less entrances, but they still intend on duplicating that program at the new high school. So there'd be volunteers from the community or parents or whoever, grandparents, that would come in for 30 minutes and be there to open doors and say hi and say good morning.
Yeah, JP right now does 1 lunch shift a week over at Bozeman.
Hit the Bozeman, yeah. Anything else that you would like to add to the list of at Gallatin High School, things that we could consider or you have ideas for?
This thought just occurred to me just when you were mentioning kind of the green space, but I don't know, is it meaningful to contribute trees and stuff like that for, I don't know if that's meaningful, useful, I don't know.
Okay.
Picnic tables?
Yes.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Picnic tables? That's what I heard you say.
Yeah. Some, kind of help create gathering spaces potentially.
To create gathering spaces, sure. Any other ideas come to mind? You can all see how sloppy my handwriting is now. This is fun. Okay, what about the surrounding community? We've got a couple of ideas here. Space for outside groups to meet and eat. signage in the community, and global exposure, meaning mission trip partnerships. Great. Any,
And that last one wasn't very fleshed out, I don't know.
that's okay.
Direction
Yeah,
that
they don't
we
have to
go.
be. Any other ideas in this sector? The space for outside groups to meet and eat, are you thinking our space here or did that person leave?
No.
No, you're here.
A church back in Wisconsin had a huge narthex, and they opened up a coffee bar. It's not staffed, but a coffee thing, and they have tables around through it, and outside groups, if some people decide they need a meeting space to talk and eat, or not, you know, there's snack food, and it's a on your honor kind of thing.
Sure.
And that place has attracted a lot of folks to that church.
Yep.
And
Great. Okay. I will add that one in addition to the back wall. All right. Let's go back here. Now you have to turn your heads. Can't sit still in my conversations. Nothing on the other, and that's okay. I just put it up there in case you had an epiphany or an idea that you didn't think fit anywhere. So this one has the most ideas, which is kind of no surprise because I think a lot of what we've been thinking about is how can we utilize our space and area to serve our neighbors. So church lunch. Chunch. Unlock the doors. Is this what the men's group talked about yesterday morning, or was this Dave? This is what Dave talked to me about. Dave would like us to consider unlocking the doors and letting the high school students sleep here if they need, or shower, or be using this space for those that don't have a space to go to.
I put that up there, and I understand, I would certainly understand that there has to be some limits, but one of my problems is if I ever come to the church, the door's usually locked. And I don't think that sends a great message.
Okay. Late night games and social time. Rock band concerts at noon. Hey, that sounds like fun. After school activities. Build a building appropriate to attract and serve students. Enhance signage. Sleeping, showering accommodations, that's along the lines of what Dave had mentioned to me. Our welcoming theology, we can utilize that. Something similar to the Rock, a study space with food, or small groups could possibly meet here. And then a safe space for tutoring and mentoring. I will add a meeting space for their staff. Nobody wrote down the food trucks, so I'm going to write down the food truck idea, that we could use our parking lot during the lunch hour for food trucks that are already in existence and owned by somebody else to park here, and that would be a way to get food. I think the high school is thinking about that as well, so that would be one thing we'd want to talk to them about. Do they have space for food trucks? Are they going to do that? Would it be helpful to use this parking lot as well for that?
This probably should go on the other.
Okay.
But I don't think our first priority is to convert or catechize these students. I think we have to offer a different option, a free option. I don't want kids coming here thinking the church is going to impose something upon them that they don't know anything about yet. I would guess half of those students, and actually you're closer, Julian and Mariah, to that age, but I bet you half of those students have never been inside a church. And when they drive by, I would say they're probably less than curious. They're probably more, that place scares them.
Can I say something about that?
Please.
So, I came to Bozeman from like 1,000 miles away, and
I was already a Christian, but like I didn't really have a denomination, which meant I didn't know a lot about each denomination. And so like when I heard Lutheran, Baptist, Presbyterian, like I already had some thoughts that I was like forming in my mind about them. And I was terrified to come here the first time. So like we say that we have a welcoming theology, and I know that now, but I didn't know that at that time. And so like how do we express that to them?
So it ties into a lot of what's on that board, but I think having after-school activities or movie nights or youth group night or something, where they're not coming here to get the Bible shoved down their throat. Like I know we don't do that, but they don't know that.
That's
They're
right.
here to watch a movie. Or they're here to meet other high school students that already go here, and that's it. And then they can formulate their own thoughts after that. That would be a great way to get them here and let them know that that's not what we're about. It's just, hey, you can come here and eat and watch a movie.
Need something to get behind. We need something to get behind again.
Okay,
And this would be something we can get behind,
sure.
so.
Well, with that silence, I will take that as you guys have said what you want to say today. I thank you for your time. This is great information. I think you and I should meet after this, not next week, week or so after, and we'll talk about this more as a council and with staff, and then we'll kind of let you guys know where we're at with next steps. And know that at any point, if you have ideas or conversations about this, reach out to myself or Pastor Lindeen or JP, that this is an ongoing conversation and that we are always looking for your information, feedback. And a lot of this, we'll talk to the school about and really try to see where that middle ground is right off the bat as they're getting started of what's realistic and what we can offer and what that looks like, because they have to be open to it as well and be supportive.
So do you have any feel on the rock thing as far as what they're doing here?
There isn't anything. That is one of their needs.
Okay.
So I personally think a conversation with the Rock is next. I think there are at least one or two other faith groups that are looking at things that Lindeen's been in conversation with. So maybe trying to get some of those entities in the same room to see what they're thinking. Like, is the Rock going to replicate? Or are they looking for somebody else? Could there be a partner that comes in and kind of replicates what they have over in this part? What does that look like, or what are their groups? Because that's not something we can do alone. That would require partnerships and other people. So I imagine a good conversation on that one in particular, because that's one of their first concerns, is that lunchtime time and after school time. So what could we provide in our space or nearby, or something that there would be a safe place for kids to go after school, especially those that can't drive, who need to wait for practice or need to wait for a parent to pick them up, and so they have a safe place to go and they can get an after-school snack. I think that is a major concern for that first fall.
Which, something like that, especially in terms of after school, I guess, maybe less so for lunch, but wouldn't conflict the preschool at all.
It would not. Not at all. And we're right within walking distance. We're kind of right in the center, we're right there. We're not that far away, so. But that is one of theirs. The parent volunteers was one of their first ones as well. And they are looking for some other meeting spaces, so we know that they would like to use the fellowship hall at times for meeting spaces. Coffee has come up in conversation too. They are building a small coffee kiosk inside the building. They have a big open, like their main entrance has this big open foyer with steps and all these places, and underneath one of those sets of steps is a coffee kiosk they've built in, but it's not probably built to manage or receive all of their coffee needs, but some, but they think that there is need for coffee around here too. So. Great, thank you all so much. Enjoy your Sunday. I hope the sun shines. When we do this again, you can come back.
Thanks.